Americans are confused about food. They want to eat healthier, but they don't quite know where to start. I'll show you how small changes can have a large impact on your health. For most Americans, moving toward a healthier lifestyle is as easy as this. Eat less, move more. Include more fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, and avoid processed foods high in harmful fats, sugars, and salt. Hi, I'm Laura Davidson, registered dietitian and associate professor of nutrition at Community College of Philadelphia. Today on Good Nutrition Made Easy, we're going to get practical. I know that improving your diet can seem tricky. You're busy, stressed, working within a budget, and dealing with family members who have very established taste preferences. So, practically speaking, how do you sneak more fruits and vegetables into your diet? Let's explore the issue and come up with some simple strategies. Let's begin with what we know. Fruits and vegetables, especially the unprocessed or lightly processed type, are really good for our health. We know that a diet high in whole plant foods, including fruits and vegetables, leads to positive health outcomes, such as lower rates of chronic disease and a longer lifespan with less disability. And therefore, dietary patterns endorsed by nutrition experts center around those foods. Let's take a look. For instance, the USDA's MyPlate reinforces the fact that most of our intake should be from plant foods. The website at choosemyplate.gov provides a huge volume of information on lifestyle recommendations and tools to make the change to a more plant-based diet. When you look at the picture of the plate in the USDA Choose My Plate system, there should be a couple of messages that jump right out at you. One is that most of the plate should be taken up by plant foods. The other is half of your plate should be fruits and vegetables. The DASH diet is another diet. It was designed to lower blood pressure, and it does a pretty good job at that, but its use is now recommended for preventing most chronic diseases. As you can see from the graphic of the DASH diet, this diet also encourages plentiful fruits and vegetables. The diet centers around foods that provide lots of potassium and lots of calcium, so low-fat dairy products are involved in this diet too. Lesser amounts of meat and, of course, lesser amounts of things like sweets and unhealthy fats. They've shown that people who follow the DASH diet have a significant drop in their blood pressure. One of my favorite diets is the Mediterranean diet, I think because it tastes so good. It's important to note, however, that the Mediterranean diet is not what most Americans think of as Italian food. It is modeled after the traditional diet in Greece and southern Italy around 1960, when chronic disease rates were among the lowest in the world and life expectancy was among the highest, even though medical care was limited. It was the peasant diet. It wasn't the diet of those who were very wealthy. The diet's not high, as you might think, in things like refined pasta, cheese, and sausages. Instead, when you look at the Mediterranean diet, you see a dietary pattern based on plant foods, consisting mainly of fruits and vegetables, beans and nuts, healthy grains, fish, olive oil, small amounts of dairy, and some red wine for those who choose to drink alcohol. The research keeps coming out in support of this diet. The Mediterranean diet has been associated with a wide range of health benefits, including lower rates of heart disease, strokes, cancers, type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's disease, depression, and even less cognitive decline as we get older. It's even been shown to help people who are trying to lose weight long term. And once again, most foods on this diet are plant-based. They have a lower glycemic index, which means that the rise in your blood sugar is more gradual, and they have a lower energy density, which means that the food has fewer calories but more bulk, so it keeps you satisfied. So all of these dietary patterns which are recommended by many, many nutrition and health professionals, depends on fruits and vegetables for many of their health benefits. It does make sense. Fruits and vegetables are not only loaded with vitamins, minerals, and fibers, but most are full of the plant substance phytochemicals, which help keep us healthy. Plus, when we choose the unprocessed or lightly processed versions, they're low in sodium, they're low in unhealthy fats, and they're low in added sugars. But Americans just don't get enough of these nutritional superstars. When we come back, we'll talk to my student guest about how to add more fruits and vegetables to the diet, practically speaking. Welcome back, and welcome to Monique McKnight, who is a student at the Community College of Philadelphia and a future nurse midwife.
Yes, ma'am.
Good for you. Monique, we're going to talk about fruits and vegetables, and we're going to focus on making it all very easy, so that we take the difficulty out of this. But let's start by talking about the struggle. Why is it that so many people have a hard time getting fruits and vegetables into their diet? What do you think?
Price and location. Right now, if I was to go on campus and want an orange or an apple, I would pay about $1 for one piece of fruit.
Okay.
Whereas I could buy 2 bags of chips for $1 and it'll last me longer.
And do you think that price structure holds even off campus, that it's easier to find inexpensive unhealthy foods than inexpensive healthy ones?
Always. It only cost me 69 cents to supersize my meals.
Okay, so that is a problem. I noticed you're one of my students in my nutrition class, and I was really impressed when we were having a discussion that you were able to visualize ideas and recipes and how to incorporate these healthy foods into your diet. And I asked you about that, and you told me how you got to that place. Share.
I was actually a recent participant in a Biggest Loser contest from Drexel University 11th Street Clinic, and one of the programs that we was able to attend was a cooking class. Right now, they only have the cooking class for their patients, but they plan to extend it to non-patients as well. And one of the recipes that I was informing you about was the watermelon and arugula salad that was completely different but completely delicious.
Okay, so in that class, you were able to prepare and then taste these different recipes?
We prepared them, we researched them, we tasted them, we even shopped. And we compared prices.
Great.
We learned how to be able to tell the difference between a sale and just a promotion. We learned about shopping not just by the quantity, but by the unit per pound as well. So we could get the most bang out of our buck.
Good for you. So you are quite the expert I have here with me today to talk about these ideas. And what we're going to do is, let me set this up. Yesterday, I went through a standard chain supermarket, so nothing fancy or unusual. I had about $20, and I looked for produce items that were pretty recognizable, that people would be fairly familiar with, and I bought them. And what I want us to do is to share ideas for how we take these easy to find, relatively inexpensive foods and sneak them into the diet. Okay?
Awesome. I have to do that for my daughter every day.
Okay. So we'll start with breakfast. We'll start with breakfast ideas. What do you see that you would sneak into a diet?
My daughter is on a Frosted Flakes kick, so I would easily put a banana inside of her cereal. Just chop them up. It give it a nice little texture. It give it a nice little sweetness, and I could put it in more than one different type of cereal. Okay. And she won't really recognize it that much.
So we could shift her away from the Frosted Flakes perhaps, but I think you make a good point, and that is how easy is a banana? And again, relatively inexpensive. Anything else you see here for you or your daughter?
Pancakes, a lot of hot meals, hot cereal. You can easily throw blueberries inside of. Oatmeal, you can easily chop up some apples.
Okay, good. I also, occasionally, we can even sneak in some vegetables. So I picked up these pre-grated carrots. Can you think of a breakfast item?
We have sickle cell trait, so our iron get low every once in a while. So I try to have as my cousin will call me, I have a salad for breakfast. It's a hot salad. It's an omelet. I use egg whites. I use anything from spinach, carrots, green peppers, onions, kale. I've used tomatoes. I use just about every fruit and every vegetable and some fruits that you could imagine has been in my breakfast items.
Okay. And I think that's so great because we tend to think in terms of what cheese omelets, that's as far as we get. But I, as well, have thrown in everything from tomato to green pepper to onion.
Even mushrooms.
Even mushrooms. You mentioned greens, so from kale to spinach.
I even put broccoli.
Broccoli in an omelet. You may not think about vegetables at breakfast, but it's not so hard to get them in there. Anything else you see as a breakfast idea?
You can make, instead of regular home fries, you could do something sweeter and use a sweet potato home fry. And you can eat that with some type of protein, eggs or bacon.
So you would cut your sweet potato into small pieces, then give it a quick...
You could do a quick saute with some olive oil, or you could even put it in the oven, sprinkle some sugar on, some brown sugar or just a little sweetener, and it will give it a nice little robust taste.
Oh, good for you. Wow, I am getting hungry as we're sitting here talking about all this. The last thing before we leave breakfast, I did want to mention, because they're very popular, smoothies, breakfast smoothies. Do you ever make a smoothie, or you're not a big smoothie fan?
I'm a very big smoothie fan, and once again, I put everything in my smoothies. It depends on what I have the taste for or what I'm lacking and I'm trying to introduce into my diet. If my iron is low or if I'm unusually cold, I will put spinach in it. I will put kale in it. I will put cucumbers in it. If during the summertime or when I'm fasting, my breakfast smoothie, I would put things that has a lot of water in it. So it might be tomatoes. It will definitely be cucumbers, watermelon, stuff that has a lot of water in it so I can remain hydrated throughout my fast.
So as I'm talking to you, Monique, I'm hearing this fearless relationship with food. It sounds like you know what's healthy and you're not afraid to slip it in there.
No. Not
Okay,
at
that's
all.
great. Why don't we talk about lunch and dinner ideas? So again, how to sneak in these types of things. You did mention cucumber, I think, in your smoothie?
Yes.
Okay. Any other places you could use a cucumber?
Bannistow, I'm a college student. Sometimes I need to eat on the go. Sandwiches are a very good approach for me because I can eat and study or read. So one of my most favoriteest meals is a BLT, but I actually do a little bit more. I'll use turkey bacon, I'll use whole wheat bread, I'll use egg white with very little bit of mayonnaise, and I'll have lettuce, tomatoes, and sometimes inside the eggs, I might even put some spinach inside of it.
Gosh, that sounds delicious.
With a hoagie, I will even use spring mix instead of regular iceberg lettuce, green peppers, onions, cucumbers, just about anything just to fill me up in a healthy way.
And we talked about that in class, and that is moving away from the animal-based foods, but puffing up your sandwich, make it more interesting with all of these great vegetables. So that's what you're describing. Pizzas?
I make several different pizzas. I will use one of my breakfast items like a whole wheat bagel, and I'll use some pizza sauce, and I'll season it myself, and I'll put some low-fat mozzarella cheese. So you find that by just making things interesting and fun and you being a role model, she follows along. And because it's so easy and it's so affordable, she could shop with me and she could also cook with me. And
she's proud that she had such a big part in this. That's great. I made a pizza the other night that I was actually following a recipe, but it had cheese, cheddar cheese, apple, and walnuts. Who would think? A very unusual combination. It was delicious. Little olive oil, little tarragon. So again, sometimes recipes are helpful. One of my favorite places is cookinglight.com because I don't always think of these combinations, so it's nice to have ideas. It sounds like you're very off the cuff, though. You tend to go with what's in your refrigerator and not being afraid. Let's look at a few of these other foods. The avocado. You're an avocado lover or not?
I'm a licensed cosmetologist, so I use avocados with more than just food. I use it on my face. I use it on my hair. I could put it inside my smoothies. Instead of me using cream cheese on a bagel, I could use avocado. Instead on my BLTs, instead of me using mayonnaise, I could use avocado, and which is healthier, and it gives me a lot more better nutrients than mayonnaise.
Does. Do you see anything else here? I picked these up the other day, these little mandarin oranges. I don't know if you've had those. They're a great little snack, and they're fun for kids as well.
I actually put that in I actually will put several of those inside my daughter's lunchbox. She take lunch to school every day, and sometimes she share, and I know sometimes a lot of students might have chips or something to that nature, so I sometimes pack her a little bit more so she could share something healthy with her classmates. Or every once in a while, if I catch a real good sale, I would just donate a abundance of different things to her classmates.
Wow, that's a great idea. Do we leave anything out?
The grapes on the go, very easy. I could put it in a sandwich bag. I could eat it in your class. I could eat these raisins. My daughter is not really a fan of raisins, so I guess it's because it's not as sweet, so I actually substituted craisins for raisins. They're a bit more sweeter. You could put them in your oatmeal for breakfast. You could put them in your salad for lunch. You could eat them for a snack. You could use just about any of these things for any meal, any snack available.
So, as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing you're so comfortable with food and you're not afraid to try new things. And I think you're also appreciative of what you get from these types of foods and the connection to your health and your daughter's health. But backing up a step then for our viewers, this involves some planning and some shopping. Okay, so you need to have these things in the kitchen in order to throw them in your omelet or in your spaghetti sauce. So what do you do when you're at the market? Do you just make a point to make a list or make a point to go right to the produce section? What's your kind of philosophy of shopping?
Sometimes I go by sales and sometimes I go by cravings, but I'm more of a inspired eater. So sometimes I might just look at something and be like, oh my goodness, I could do this, I could do that. In the same way I took this $20 and turned it into breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack, being as though I try to shop at more farmer markets and more local farms and stuff like that. I know the fresh fruits and vegetables tend not to last as long because they're not put through as much chemicals. So I try to plan everything that I bought for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, and I could try to not waste any more fruits or vegetables.
I think that's key, isn't it? Because a lot of people are afraid to get produce because they say it goes bad. But you have to know how to cycle through things. You have to know how to look in your refrigerator and say, that's not going to make it to the end of the week, so I need to take care of that in some kind of recipe today.
Or I even freeze things. I know I use green peppers, onions, and mushrooms in a lot of different recipes, so I might cut up half of it, and the other half I will rinse, cook, and freeze. So I would be able to use it. My fruits and vegetables, if I find them at a real good price, I will take and make a smoothie in a sandwich bag and freeze it. So when I'm ready, all I have to do is let it thaw out a little bit, put it inside my blender, and there go my smoothie.
Good for you. You are a role model for all of our viewers. Okay?
Thank you.
Be fearless. Don't be afraid to try new things, and just remember how important this produce is to your health. That's what it's all about. So thank you for joining us today, and stay with us. When we come back, we'll be talking to Lisa Gadanowitz, who is the Executive Program Director and founder of Stead. You'll want to hear about this. Welcome back. I'm so excited to have our guest here today, Lisa Gadanowitz, who is the Executive Director and also the founder of Stead. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I heard some coverage of your program on the radio, and I was so excited to hear about it. So maybe you can tell our viewers, starting at the very beginning, what led to the founding of Stead.
Yeah, so I moved to Philly about 6 years ago. I was working in IT, and I got a job with a GED program in North Philadelphia, Yes Philly. Now they're a charter school, but they were GED at the time. We, long story short, ended up creating a career training program doing technology, so I ended up teaching. I started teaching and realized I loved it, realized that this was a population of young people in Philadelphia that I felt did not get the attention they needed, and decided that's what I wanted to do. So while I was at Yes, we actually brought a group of youth out to a farm in West Philly. And on the way there, my students, especially the girls, were like, Miss Lisa, I am not getting my hands dirty. I don't know who you think you are. Within 10 minutes of being there, every single one of those students had their hands in the soil.
Wow.
They were planting tomatoes. There was one student going around collecting herbs. And it was a level of engagement that you don't often see among city youth. And I realized this was a thing that most of these kids had never gotten their hands in the soil before. So it kind of stuck with me. And when I left Yes, I decided that I wanted to follow it, and I wanted to keep working with young people, and that was the medium by which I was going to do that.
Wow, good for you. So what is Urban Stead? Tell us about that.
Urban Stead is a nonprofit program in Philadelphia. We work with youth of all ages to do career development, life skills training, food literacy, nutrition training, using an urban farm as the means of doing that.
How are the youth involved?
This summer what we did was we worked with a number of different groups throughout Philly. People for People, Greater Exodus Baptist Church, Yes Philly, I'm working with Blaine School up in Strawberry Mansion now. And I also worked with a number of college youth, CCP being one of them. And youth came in and we had workshops. We learned how to plant, to actually sow seeds, how to transplant starter plants into the soil. We learned how to harvest. We learned how to weed. We learned about compost. So different things depending on what was going on. Next year it's going to be a little bit different. What we're hoping is to have actually a core group of teens that will be working with the younger students as mentors. So this core group would actually be trained in a lot of urban farming techniques, and then they would then turn and use their knowledge to help work with younger people.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, because as much as I can stand up there and be like, hey, everybody learn this, it's much more effective when it's young people teaching other young people.
And it's a great experience for those older teens to be mentors as well.
Exactly.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, the older teens definitely they learn from the younger ones. I mean, that's kind of what I learned when I started teaching. I was teaching, but you learn, and I'm sure you know this, you learn quite a bit from your students. So the older teens are actually learning from the younger kids, and as well as the younger kids actually gaining something from these older mentors.
So I have a question that I just thought of, and that is, how did you learn how to navigate through everything that's involved in urban farming?
I'm still learning.
Okay, all right.
I'm actually, so I've always been a hobby gardener. I've always kind of really liked the idea of, I grew up in a farm environment in Massachusetts, actually, and New England. Lived on a farm area. And so in the city, it's something that you're not supposed to be able to do. You know, farming is a country thing. So I've always been a little bit rebellious. I've always been a little bit punk rock. So I was like, I'm gonna do this. And so I started.
We need rebels. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so that's what's really cool about it is like you're not supposed to be able to do this, yet we're doing it. You know, I grew a couple 100 pounds of tomatoes on a small plot of land this summer.
And I've heard that you sell your produce at a local farmer's market. Was that a farmer's market that you set up and manage?
So Francisville Neighborhood Development Corp, our fiscal sponsor, and they've run this market in the past. We kind of took over through them this summer, so it actually worked out really well because we can bring our young people to the farmer's market. Not only is the community getting local fresh and very local fresh vegetables, I mean literally around the corner from where the market is set up, but our young people are learning how to run a business. So they're doing customer service, they're learning how to stage the farm stand. They're learning how to keep accounts of what's going on. I mean, I have one of my 11-year-olds who I know it's child labor, but she insists on being the one who hands the money back and forth. And I mean, she's sitting there counting change back to people. Those are skills that these young people can take as they get older and use in I actually had several people come by and say when she's of age, she's totally hired already.
That's great.
Yeah,
and
it's kind of
also
awesome.
For their self-esteem and empowerment, that's wonderful as well.
That's what's really funny is the 11-year-old that I'm speaking of. When we were interviewed by the radio station, the reporter actually asked her, "What's the garden done for you?" And I had not fed her any lines. She just said, "I'm much more confident now." Like even an 11-year-old to be able to recognize that the garden has had that effect on her, That's
Oh,
awesome.
I just got chills.
Yeah,
That's
it was awesome.
priceless.
It was
yeah.
very, very cool.
Lisa, I was looking at your website and I saw that your mission is to reduce food insecurity and increase accessibility in Philadelphia. Explain that to us, how that you go about doing that, because those are big problems, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Large parts of Philadelphia don't have immediate access to fresh food, to grocery stores. You know, a lot of people are shopping at their corner stores. And yeah, there's other organizations in Philly that have contributed to putting fresh food in a grocery store, but you can't just put fresh food somewhere and say, "Hey, eat this." You need to work on where it comes from. So one thing that we really work on with our young people is the whole idea that when you plant that seed, so you put that seed in the soil, right? And then you water it, you add fertilizer to it, you watch it sprout, it becomes a plant. You're responsible for making sure that that plant is growing. When that plant actually has fruit on it, there is a level of pride in that. I think the more education of where our food comes from, the more when somebody sees vegetables in a corner store or at a farmer's market, the more likely they're going to be to purchase it, because now that's a part of their life.
So do you see a big problem being that there's a generation that is just totally unfamiliar with food in its almost raw or natural state?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we were talking before, and I can't tell you how many college-age students come into my garden and don't understand that a tomato is green before it is red, don't recognize that a carrot grows in the ground, can't identify a pepper. I mean, it's actually, when you actually see it happen, it's just like, why?
Right. Do you, I'm going off script here, but I keep thinking of questions. Do you see the kids taking messages home to their families?
Yes.
Okay, so it's
Absolutely.
Spreading or growing that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, because if you have a kid that's growing kale, right? Okay, so they might try the kale at the garden, but then they can take that home, and there's that I'm supplying my family with something. And at a young age, when you're young, to be able to feel that you're having some level of responsibility, and I really think a lot of it is about responsibility. I think a lot of our young people aren't given enough support in their responsibilities. I very much encourage leadership and responsibility among young people, because we're going to take pride in that. If you're constantly told no, 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 you're not going to go anywhere. But if you're told, yes, you can do this.
And look what you did.
Right, and look what you did. You fed your family, That's awesome.
Yeah, that is wonderful.
Yeah.
Are there any last bits of the vision that you'd like to share with us, or maybe words that you would like to leave with us about your organization?
Well, what we really, really want to do in the future is we want to actually create Urban Stead to be almost a incubator of urban agricultural businesses run by young people, so that we could have a composting program that we start, and a young person takes over that composting program and makes that their own business. More farmers markets, more farms around the city, so that with the farm that we're doing in Francisville, I don't expect to be the farmer there forever. I want a young person to come in and take over and run that as a business, run the farm stands. I think there's a lot of opportunity for young people in urban agriculture, and I just want to see it happen.
Good. Good for you. How can our viewers help? So this is still a fledgling organization that needs propping up and support for it to grow. How can that happen?
I need volunteers, and that's volunteers to come and get their hands dirty. It's also volunteers to, I do a lot of the social media work. I do grant writing. Basically, all aspects. I will take volunteer help with that. We are looking for businesses to sponsor us. We definitely need more financial support. So, businesses that'll sponsor us, individual donations, we take those as well. It's all write-offable because we are 501c3. So
that's great. And how would they find you?
Our website is urbanstead.org. It's urbanstead, like homestead.org.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank
What
you.
a great job you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for that as well.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you for joining Good Nutrition Made Easy today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call the college. For now, remember, sneak in those extra fruits and vegetables. You'll be healthier for it.